All right. Lesson 43, inheritance. We will be able to describe how and why some traits are passed on from an old generation to a new one. So what we're going to be discussing today is, why do, sometimes some traits start with someone in a generation, and you might then they get passed down to the next generation. Why do some traits get passed down, but other traits do not? So that's going to be the goal of today's lesson. And so why does eye color get passed down? Why does, such and such, whatever. So that's going to be the goal for today. And it's just going to be a quick little lesson because obviously I've already given you guys some time to work on some questions. And then at the very end, I would like to spend just 2 minutes talking about what we're going to be doing next week, because I need to give you guys a task next week. And if I don't give it to you next week, then it means that I can't properly write your reports. So that's something that I'm going to talk about. It'll be an online task, but I'll explain it. Now, before I talk about today's lesson, let's grab a quick look down memory lane. What did we talk about last lesson? The last lesson we talked about meiosis. Now, meiosis is essentially the idea of a cell splitting, but instead of splitting into one, it splits into 4 cells. And each of those cells have different genetic code. Why do we do this? So that there is more genetic diversity when those cells go to make new babies or new children. Now, you don't actually have to rely on this kind of way to reproduce. You can actually reproduce without having sex. It's called asexual reproduction. That's the technical name for it. Asexual reproduction. So reproduction without sex, whereas sexual reproduction means it's reproduction with sex. So and sex being when a sperm and an egg meet. Now, I first talked about, okay, so how does this process work? Firstly, you have crossover. So some of the genes from a pair will swap to the other gene in that pair. And then after the swap has taken place, you then copy the DNA, split the DNA once, and then split the DNA again. So then you get 4 copies, 4 cells, each with 23 chromosomes, which is half of the amount that you need. And they are each different. Each of these is different, and also each of these has different amounts of each chromosome. Some will have 1, some will have 2, so on and so forth. So then we copied down this picture, and then we wrapped up the end of the lesson saying, because there are so many ways that you could split these 2 different ways, you could split them in so many different ways, you actually have 2 to the power of 23. So 8.4 million possible ways that you could split that DNA. Plus, that's even ignoring the crossover. So then I said, well, how do you get twins? I said that there are 2 types of twins. Fraternal twins, and that's where you get 2 different eggs and 2 different sperms. And then identical twins, 1 egg, 1 sperm, but when the egg splits, instead of doing proper mitosis, it accidentally splits into 2 people, but both of those people are identical.
Those
Now,
eggs look like egg yolks.
sorry, what was that?
The eggs look like egg yolks.
Yeah, they do. Well, that's the point, because they are eggs. So we talked about inheritance.
Yeah.
Now, today I'm going to talk about what this term inheritance means, and then we're going to talk about, okay, where does this come from? What does inheritance mean? Inheritance is when something is passed down to you from your biological parents. From your biological parents to you. So this something that's being passed down it can mean money. So when you inherit money or inherit property, it's when you get money or property from your parents or your grandparents or maybe an uncle or something. But in financial terms, this is money passed on when they die. But in genetic terms, it is the genes, the traits and characteristics you gain from sharing some DNA with each parent. So because you have because your DNA is 50% from your mom and 50% from your dad, you will have some of the traits that your mom has, and you will have some of the traits that your dad has. The classic ones are when people go, oh my God, you have your mother's eyes, you have your father's nose. I've heard people go, you have your face looks exactly like your mom except for your ears. They just don't look like your type of ears. They look like your dad's ears. And that is inheritance. Now, but you can also inherit things. Now, of course, you can inherit things that aren't necessarily too great. My mum wore glasses growing up. My dad wore glasses growing up. And so guess what? When I was born, I needed to have glasses. I inherited from my parents some poor vision. I inherited my blood type from my father. I've got A positive. I have A positive. It turns out that my father also has A positive. My mother had O negative. So yeah, that's okay. I inherited, but you can inherit diseases. So it can be bad things. So sometimes you might inherit, like it usually turns out that if you've got a woman in your family with breast cancer, you're more likely to get breast cancer because they can pass it down. You don't get a choice in what you pass down to your next generation. You just pass it down. So yeah, I'm going to change the slide in about 30 seconds. You haven't copied this down yet. You've got about 30 seconds left. And then the other one is this, okay? If you're sitting there and you're done, write in chat, who do people say you look more like, your mum or your dad?
My dad.
Your dad. See, I always find that I can definitely see it. I always remember when I'm being very little and I would be like, you'd see a girl and they go, you look much like your father. And you're like, but it's a girl. How can it look like your father?
Then again, they say I look like my sister as well.
But then I look at when I look at girls, sometimes I go, yeah, no, you've got the same chin as your dad. Patty goes, I've been told so many times that I look like my auntie, my mum's sister, and nothing like my dad. I love that. Yeah, Patty, well, of course, think about it, right? If you share 50% of your DNA with your mum, some of that DNA is going to be the same as the DNA in your mum's auntie. So you will share some DNA with her. But yeah, it's weird. Wait, not mum's sister, like my mum. What do you mean? I've been told so many times that I look like my auntie, my mum's sister. Yeah, that's what your auntie is.
No, I meant it as like I've been told that I look like my mom's sister. Like I look like I would be sister to my mom.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that too. That's always weird.
So what
It's
blocked
always
up?
weird when you're like, oh man, like you guys look like, you know, cute sisters. Is like, we ain't sisters. She's
Yeah.
my daughter. It's like, oh, that'd be weird. All right. Let's move
Apparently-
on. But yeah. It's even worse. It can be worse though. It's bad when you're like, yo, you guys look like, you know, it could be worse. Think about if it was someone that says, is this your daughter? It's like, no, this is my youngest sister. I have some friends that are 10 years apart in age. Actually, maybe they're not 10. I think there's only 5 or 6 years apart. And because of that, but they look, but some people say, are you guys mother and daughter? And they're like, no. We don't have enough time. We do have enough time. We've got 6 minutes. We'll be fine.
Do you
Okay.
copy this one down?
Yes, can I get you to copy this one down? Maybe we won't, Betty. Maybe you're right, but we're going to try, okay? So we're going to talk about a new term here. And the new term is called a genotype. Now, a genotype is the particular set of genes in your DNA that make you unique. So it is information given to you by your parents. So your genotype is your DNA. When I say genotype, I essentially just mean your DNA. Okay. So, and it's just a particular set of genes. So it's not like these genes do these sort of things. Okay, that's the main thing about a genotype. This is the information given to you by your parents. So even if you were separated from your parents at birth, if you were like given to another family, you would still have a genotype from your parents. That's what genotype is. I'm going to give you guys, and yes, Benny's correct, we don't have too much time, so I'm only going to give you guys about like maybe a minute to copy this down, maybe even less. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. I'm only going to go through one more slide, Benny. That's why I'm not too stressed. Benny's like, we're not going to make it. We might not make it. It might be a bit too late, but it's okay. My wife looks a little bit like her dad, that's for sure. They've got the same, both got round faces, whereas my wife's sister looks like her mum because they've both got more oval shaped faces. I just take pictures of them. Oh, okay, yeah. You know that these slides are available to you already on the Google Classroom. You can just open the slideshow up and just go through it. Okay, so the final slide, I believe, for today, it is not a lie, it is there. So we're going to take this word genotype. Remember, a genotype is the DNA. Your DNA, it's what makes you, okay? Whereas we're going to take this genotype and we're going to then say, well, what if you take a genotype, and I'd like you to copy this down, and your environment. So when I say your environment, I'm not just talking about I'm talking about where you, when I talk about environment, I'm talking about where you, what you eat, where you live, what you drink, how much exercise you do. All of these things are part of your environment, okay? They're not part of your DNA. All of these things control something called a phenotype. A phenotype is an observable physical or chemical characteristic of an individual, otherwise known as traits. Some examples of a phenotype include skin color, height, weight, hormone level, hair color. The reason that skin color is here is because your skin color is affected not just by your genes, but by where you live. If you live somewhere that's really, really sunny, then you will have a different skin color to if you live somewhere that's really cold where you don't get as much sun. I do want to go through one more slide, so I'm going to change the slide in about a minute from now. And this last slide, just hold on one sec. Yeah, this will be the last slide. The next slide will be the last slide. You can copy it down, go off and enjoy your weekend. By the way, I put on today's thing, I said TGIF. Do you guys know what TGIF stands for?
Thank God it's Friday.
Yes. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday.
I did not know that, but nice.
The other one that I like, and I refer to it as, is sometimes I call it Poets Day. So I only heard this one. It stands for Piss Off Early Tomorrow, Saturday.
What?
Listen, I'm not repeating it. But just remember that these videos are recorded. I did not swear. You can't prove it. I'm completely innocent.
You said it too fast, so you weren't slick enough.
Exactly. No one will be able to find out what I said. Okay, last but not least, the last slide. Let's do the last slide at 3:05. The last slide, and then we get to go home. Well, we're already home, but yeah. So an example of a phenotype is your weight. This is the last one. Your weight is affected by your genes. Families with many overweight people will have children who tend to be overweight. AKA, if you got a fat mama, you're probably going to be fat yourself. But your environment affects your weight too. Because your diet and exercise will also affect your weight. Weight is a phenotype, which is a trait. Ladies and gents, once you've got this slide copied down, you guys can make your way out of the lesson. Thank you guys for being a really attentive class. Next week, we're going to have to move on to something a bit different. As I've said, we have to do a task together. That task is going to be online on Tuesdays when we're going to do it. So I'm going to need you to be there on Monday. I'm going to need you to read a document. So I'm going to give that to you on Monday, and that will be due on Tuesday, but you'll have to get that done. But once you finish copying this down, you can head off. Have an awesome weekend. Unfortunately, we'll be back to online learning on Monday, but these things happen. C'est la vie.